What's going on, fellas? Welcome to Red Morning. Having a fun little time today. Don't see a topic on the thing. What's this talking about? That's because there is no topic. We're just going to riff. We're going to riff. Because it's been, 3 years now? 3 years. And I have been saying the same basics and the same advanced stuff and the same normal stuff. So, figure at this point, you guys kind of know what's up. And it's almost fan service at this point. So, we're going to do some banter. And then we're going to get into some cool red-pilled concepts, something that's interesting and not just a bunch of dudes ranting about how alpha male they are, which, can we just take a minute to agree that the red pill has the same problem that Plenty of Fish and Tinder and OkCupid and Hinge and Bumble and Grindr and DoorDash and Instagram apparently and Facebook Marketplace have all had? Is that unattractive people completely kill attractive spaces. Absolutely. It's like, what the hell is he talking about? Look at that. Mish there, the T-Rexers. So, today's going to be a don't eat paint day. We did a good for men, bad for education day yesterday. The hell is he talking about the problem with Tinder and that? Well, it turns out there are a bunch of nerds at OkCupid, and they had a blog that was wonderful for statistics. Intro and OkCupid. Wonderful for statistics. It was almost as good as the ones that the Pornhub blog has. If you haven't read those, read those too. They're absolutely amazing. They found that in the life cycle of any relationship, dating, every fuck app out there, there was a beginning trend of early adopters, and the early adopters were, generally speaking, at least averagely attractive, if not a little more so, probably a little bit on the promiscuous side, and it was the cool new thing. And everybody got on, and everybody was having fun, and everybody was hooking up, and everybody was smashing. Absolutely wonderful. Then it reaches a point where it starts to grow and to grow and to grow, and it reaches a market saturation, and the heightened quality, I'll say quality of people, started to regress to the mean. Then what happens is it goes full Pareto principle. If you don't know, that means like essentially 80% of the women are going after the top 20% of users on the site. And OkCupid actually had some messaging things where they check this and they're like, yeah, you can see right here. These people are all sending messages, and they actually had a quantified HB10 scale. I think it's Hot Babe 10 is what it stands for. Essentially, they just run it like an ELO. Who messages you back? If you message somebody and they message you back, they consider you to be equivalent. Say make a 5. You message this person, they don't message you back, they would consider you slightly lower than that person. And they kind of work all the magic and see whose messages who and who doesn't message who. Absolutely distributes precisely the way you've seen in, was Rational Male 1 or 2? Electric Boogaloo. Not sure. Where it was girls mostly clustered around the mean. In other words, girls were like, I think 5, 6, 7. And guys were either 2s or 10s. And they're all the messaging in that. So then what they found out is that it got so bad, you get to the final stage, which is sugar babies, selling prostitution, horribly ugly people, deranged psychopaths. And then the attractive people just leave because they're like, I don't want to be seen around this pile of shit. And that's when a new one would start. So that started originally with, I don't know what it was on the binaries, the Usenet, but then moved on. People started AIM Instant Messenger, and then it started moving on to Friendster, then MySpace, and then Facebook. Yes, that's true. When Facebook was early, right after the point where you had to have a university thing from like 1 or 4 or 5 colleges to use it, it was the place to pick up chicks. Then High Five, and then OkCupid, or Plenty of Fish came and just crushed the competition, and then OkCupid come. Now, here's the funny thing about it, is the cycle that I described, they all went through it. But the problem is now the cycle goes faster now, to the point where, what was it? Tinder was 18 months, 2 years, something like that, when OkCupid was like a couple years. Hinge is even faster. I don't know what's there next. I don't know if any of you guys are on dating apps today. Let me know what the newest one is, because Hinge and Bumble are the two now that I know. But as far as I can tell, they've already hit peak and they've already regressed, and there's most likely something out there. So what the hell does this have to do with the red pill? Same thing, dudes. Same thing. Early adopters. And I realize this because, like, you go through the old subs and you see a lot of, like, highly invested guys invested in their lives, swapping notes for no reason. Like, it was small. 20,000 people or less actually going there, and of which half of those are just there to dunk on people who are unattractive. Because it's Reddit. Why could you be on Reddit if it's not to shit on people you think are worse off than you because it makes you feel good about your shitty life? And then as more people come, it turns into like an ask hole. Hey, how do I get to girls? That's why Clary's all pissed off about how do I get to girls, you know? Marty here in the chat. I am starting manospheresingles.com. It's not taking off. Who would have guessed? But hey, so that lets you know that the game is still the game, but the tools change all the time. It's actually there's a term in economics, and I wish Clary was here because I cannot remember it. But essentially, it's the fact that a system has rational actors in it means the system changes over time and adapts to whatever the strategy is, like a meta. So people go on here because it's the app where you can have discreet sex behind your friends' backs, and then you go there. But then it becomes popular. Then all your friends are there. Then you have to leave. Emerging strategy type stuff. I'm sure in Australia they struggle to get enough guys to do speed dating events. Well, they just got to go to the mines. They get to the mines and you can get all kinds of guys. There's my shitty attempt at another Australian accent. Australian. The os is silent. And look at this, the speed dating. Dude, I haven't even, like, speed dating was such an old thing that when I was in my 20s, even I was like, what the hell are you talking about? It's like, apparently you would like put VHS tapes in and shit like that too. But yeah, my buddies have gotten kid from speed dating. I'm assuming you mean laid, but from speed dating before. Turns out being a decent looking guy with a little game makes it open season. Oh, I can bet. Go through that. Yeah, I figured. All right, just one dude with a beard to stick stuff up his butt. Oh, that's really not going to narrow it down in this place. Can I just make a... And that's another thing I can't figure out. Why is there an obsession with guys and things in their butts? If there's one thing that the infamous Jack Murphy has taught all of us is that it is amazing how many traditional tradcon type guys are itching for an excuse to go full gay porn pill and not be shamed for it. If you guys don't know, Jack Murphy was a guy that was in this space. He was preaching about returning to family traditions. The marriage law sucks. My wife took my kids and I can't teach them baseball practice, and Antifa's doxing me. And you're like, holy crap. All of the hottest things right now are all up in his ass. True. And so then they found out after he yelled at one of their favorite conservative soccer moms on the TV, you know, heartfelt, F you. How dare you? How dare you question me, woman? And then all of his chatterbait videos of him jerking off, shoving it up his butt, and watching his girl get railed. I don't even know the details of all of it. I just know it's the kind of stuff that, like, I am not into. But I guess a lot of the TradCon fan base was like religiously watching all of his homoerotic porn. And like, no, it's to take down this brand that goes against our values. I'm not watching this because I enjoy it. And I'm just like, we have a weird place, man. Like, I can see why girls make fun of guys online because, Jesus. 2s and 10s, man. 2s and 10s. The man's G-spot is found in his butt. I mean, you might be right. But at what cost? Margin of diminishing returns. Thank you. That was the term I was looking for in that one. Oh, yes, I do need him. So he's what's made famous the meme, the $5 super chat, which is if you want to kill a career online, there's a $5 super chat just waiting in the wings that'll absolutely do it. Him with that. One of you guys sent one of the Tate guys. By the way, am I the only guy that does this? I have to ask. For the Tate brothers, the twins there. Am I the only one that refers to them as like a single person? Like, I can't tell the difference branding wise. was talking to somebody else and they were mentioning him on some conversation and they said the same thing, Tate, like singular. And I just realized I don't think anybody considers them two separate people. But whatever. So this stuff's fun and the banter's all right. This isn't really very useful though. It's like it's red meat. That's not why you guys are here. I don't think it's why I'm here either. It's kind of fun from time to time. It's good to tell a story and have the inside jokes because, like, Pat Stedman live streaming his enema was never really funny, but I mean, he did that. It's like, I'm just here for sexual strategy. I'm here for like actual red pill. And I 100% agree. But God knows, and I've mentioned this before, the red pill isn't particularly large. But the material runs deep. For example, covert contracts. It's a simple concept. It doesn't branch out too much. There's no evil psych breakdown. It's just the idea that in somebody's head, they hold this idea that if I do something, this other person will reciprocate in the way that I want them to, and then I'll have a problem-free life. But I do not talk about this. It's understood. It's the should. It's the shared values. And then the other person, for whatever reason, sometimes it's the other person doesn't want to have the responsibility of it. Sometimes the other person isn't aware of it. Sometimes they just act in their own self-interest and it sucks, which it changes your expectations. Builds up a cycle of resentment. So then you resent the other person for that, then they resent you for it, and then you end up in this whole shithole. Covert contract. That's it. I can't expand upon it from an Evo Psych background. I can't throw politics into it. I can't make a legal argument. Does not run very wide. But that runs so deep, and that's how you get into covert contracts. Simple ones. You know, if I take her out to dinner, she'll sleep with me. Sometimes girls have that one too, where they're like, oh, just because he's paying for dinner, he thinks he's entitled, and never works out. So guys are like, oh, okay, I can beat that one. That's great. And then they get to the point where they're in a relationship and they think, well, I bring home the bacon every time my wife, so she should be happy for it. I made her life better. Again, covert contract doesn't work that way. You get the entitled husband, thinks that if I bring home the bacon, she'll cook it and sleep with me and nothing happens. And you're like, oh, this is ridiculous. So you're like, fine, I'll get rid of that too. And then you end up with a new one where it's like, oh, my wife won't have sex with me, so maybe I'll learn dread. And then they practice dread for like 2 years, and then they realize at the end of it, it's like, oh, this sucks. For 2 years, I did my best to like dread this woman to sleep with me, and she never slept with me still. Now what? And you're like, oh, there's another covert contract. And it's amazing. Over the 2-year process, guys keep finding just how deep that rabbit hole of covert contracts go. And I would suggest, if you learn nothing from this channel, and I preface so many things I say with this, but if you learn nothing else from this channel, learn that the covert contracts you have are likely the reason you're so resentful at this, that, or the other thing. Now, I know there's no MGTOW 42069 watching this channel thinking, hey, I'm going to watch this and stop being so MGTOW. Maybe I'll even sleep with a girl. Maybe I'll even tell her, no, I'm not going to get married, and she'll be cool with it. Who knows? They're not watching this. They're watching Rollo because Rollo gives them just enough red meat to whet that appetite, but then pulls it back with enough like attractive shit to piss them off. It's like the beats you one day, buys you flowers the next, you know? It's absolutely wonderful. Which, all right, Navy story. One of my subordinates, I used to call him Johnny Five. Or no, Johnny Five was the boss. So I called him Johnny Newjack. His real name was John blah, blah, blah. He goes, why do you keep calling me Johnny Newjack? I'm like, you don't get a name until your QL4 package is finished. It's his on-the-job training thing, right? It's like, Jesus. And so we're fiddling around, and it's usually, I'm really hard on him, but at the same time, I'm also like really nice joking around with him. But when it came to the job, it was pretty hard. And he goes, I swear to God, the way you teach and the way you train is like an abusive husband where you'll beat me one day and buy me flowers the next. I got a chuckle out of that. He laughed. At one point, he'd finally had enough of my shit, and he took me into the secret squirrels room, and we like scrapped it out. We didn't actually fight, but it was more like play fighting, but it was pretty good. I'm like, and I've liked him ever since then. I'm like, good, you put up with my shit, and you didn't want to take any more of it, you held your boundaries. He was an awesome sailor too. By the time he was finished that package, he was like a really good guy to work with because he gave a shit about his job, and he didn't put up with a lot of shit, and that's really all you expect. But he was too nice and kind and quiet when he first got there, so we had to quash that out. There was actually a few. So I've had my full classes that I had to teach when I was at fleet school. There was about 12 to 16 guys a class, and I had 2 classes. So there was 30 guys who found out they were like trained from me. They were Ryan trained. And they kind of started to get a reputation among the fleet, both sides, which was good though. They were always really good at their job, but at the same time, they were also kind of a prick about it. And I was like, good. I was hard on them, but I swear to God, I was like, you will learn, you will be good at this, and you will not put up with shit by people who don't know nearly as much as you. Gregory McGrath, sir, thank you for the $20 super chat. I came to learn to smash more, and I'm finding self-actualization. God knows I hope so, sir, as long as you're still smashing. I would hate for you to be self-actualized with dry dick, you know? If you say red pill is dead, you have no idea what red pill is. Well, here, that's a kind of a nuanced take on this. Actually, you know what? Let's make that the topic. Is red pill dead? Because it's a topic I've been I don't have enough to work with, but... what are we time on right now? 16 minutes. This one's going to be fun. Is the red pill dead? Possibly, possibly not. Let's find out. Ever since it became a thing, I'll say around the subreddit times, like 2012, 2014. There was the first year and everybody loved it. There was this guy, Cuck06. He was actually a guy who got off on his wife cuckolding him. Weirdest thing ever. But he was like, yeah, I like this here because like all this talk about hypergamy, run amok, and AWOLT and that stuff. He's like, I get off on that shit. And he goes, if you want to have a guy learn something, have him get off on it. And so the idea was, this is great. So I can, like, I get off on all this type of how bad women are thing, but I can talk to you guys about it from my side of things so you know exactly what to avoid. So everybody was winning on it. He kind of left at some point, I think a year or two in. And that was when the first flood of guys came in saying, this place used to be better. It's just completely gone downhill, and it's essentially dead right now. Having said that, the natural response would be, well, be the change you want to see. If you think it's dead, and if you think it's missing content, go do stuff, come back, report it. Never ends up being the case. It's always some guy who wants to be entertained, and he's pissed off when the entertainment doesn't cater to his ever-changing sensibilities. You look through their posting histories, never a post, there's no blog, there's no videos, there's no nothing. Geez, maybe it is dying. It turns out there's a core group of what I would call flavor posters. It's a term there was actually an old subreddit called Theory of Reddit. This guy broke down probably one of the smartest understandings of any type of online social space ever. He managed this place called Tumblr in Action, which was making fun of like Tumblr girls, kind of like a playful version of like anti-feminism, essentially. He noticed that at the beginning, the moderators don't count and the individual users don't count. He called flavor posters. And he said, if you look through the posts, about a dozen people were making 80% of the posts on there. So they were driving the content. They were driving the conversations that surrounded the content. They were driving the ship. And you could moderate them and kill your subreddit, or you can like encourage ones, discourage the others. There's certain tools you had, like locking posts was great to show something and show that like this isn't the kind of content we're doing, which I've used to great all the time in Married Red Pill, because some guys will ask some stupid question and then everybody makes fun of it. And then you think, just get rid of this thing. And like, no, leave it up, but just lock it. So like, you're not commenting on it, but here is a look at somebody who's so far gone, he doesn't even belong here. So at least people understand. And the idea is these flavor posters will create the atmosphere for any space. And this is one thing I take very seriously. Like there is flavor posters here. For example, you see them all the time. Marty in sales, Dante. In fact, I've mostly modded them on here. It's a good way for me to tell at a glance. Baron Gaslight, he's here all the time. Jimmy Jones is one of these guys now. Stupid posts. Then how did massaging a-hole get through? Do you really want to talk about that one? And you know what? Let me finish my thought first, and then we'll get to that. Yeah, so these flavor posters. Now, when people would join, it was short, it was great. People join in. The flavor posters drive them towards the kind of content that they're looking to see here. This is how you fit in, the conversation surrounding it. And if somebody kind of steps out of line and changes the social norms, most of the time the other people either don't engage or kind of correct it. And then people acclimatize to a space. Everything goes well. Then the Eternal September happens. If you've never heard of it, Eternal September was an old BBS internet phenomenon where at the beginning of the school year, all the students would get internet access finally. And so they would flood the news groups with a bunch of shit. And the problem is when they flood too quickly, same as like when immigration happens too fast in a place, there is too many new people and not enough flavor posters. So the acclimatization process never happens. And what happens then is you get a general regression to the mean. People start acting like normal people and not as opposed to acting like an interested person in a novelty space or a niche space. Generally kills the entire vibe of a subreddit. Most of the senior kind of flavor posters, they move on and they go do their own thing because they're like, this is stupid. Same as I just talked to you about before with Tinder and Hinge and that. Once the unattractive people come in and turn Tinder into like a fat fest, they're like, all right, I'm out of here. I'm going to Bumble. I'll see you later. The Twitch channel, by the way, I still run it, just not very much. It's still there. So is the red pill dead? And I would argue it has gone through this. It had hyper awesome flavor posters. In fact, there was enough flavor posters. There was an entire subreddit for it. It's a private subreddit. You have to get invited. I've long since left because, well, mostly because I was like, this place isn't for me anymore. But it was good, and they used to set up little things like they realized if you're getting people joining too fast, and every time the media would come out with a hit piece, you know, hey, this Dr. Warlord article about how to get laid like a warlord. This is cringe. This is alt-right crap. And then, of course, people are like, oh, alt-right, horrible crap about hating women. I got to go see this for myself. And they get in there. And then you read the article and you're like, oh, so it's just a provocative title to piss off news reporters. So, and then the article here's like, I mostly do most of this stuff anyway. They just threw a bunch of language around it that's not the most attractive. I get it. And then a couple guys will be like, oh, that's kind of neat. And then they stick around. That was the cycle of growth for the red pill. Growth at all costs. Married Red Pill didn't really do that. Didn't do much advertising at all. I will say this to our own detriment, because if you do it, and I'm going to see if it still works. So I'm going to do it right now live. If you type in Married Red Pill into Google. Oh, sweet. We won the SEO. Oh, that's because I typed Married Pill. It used to be when you typed in Married Red Pill in, oh, there it is. So Married Red Pill, 3 words. You type it into the chat or you type it into Google and the first things you get are this article by this middle-aged soccer mom. Is this the same one? Yep. Darcy Reader, the soulless subreddit for men who game their wives. And it's a angry, bitter old Bessie bitching about husbands and shit like that. And then the second one is like a university PhD study where they're like, yeah, see, most of these guys are Southeast Asian. They're all unattractive and autistic. And like Married Red Pill, the subreddit, is actually number 3 on the list. Yeah, Bishop, you're right. It kind of killed the PUA space in the 2000s as well. It's kind of how everything dies. It becomes a victim of its own success. That's why you'll see occasionally I'll throw out a tweet where I'm like, first as farce, or first as tragedy, now as farce. And I really do consider like the Fresh and Fit podcast format to be the harbinger of the apocalypse when it comes to red pills. So I'm like, the capital has been milked and we are done. It's dead in the sense it's flooded with unattractive grifters, thus staying essential purpose of male sexual strategy. It is. And I don't know how to fix that kind of problem either. Having said that, it's not dead. Like I said, people create new spaces. If there's a group of guys who are interested in this stuff and swapping notes, a space will form. The difference is like the old spaces are no longer working. And that's what you're getting with this rubber butthole thing. Okay, so that was there's this post on there about some guy looking on what to do with his wife. And it's just one of the flavor posters. In fact, this is a common problem amongst flavor posters is they start to get high on the fame. Do you remember when Carl and I used to talk about this 2 years ago where he's like, as a wrestler, you're not supposed to buy your mark? Like Ric Flair eventually started to believe he was the millionaire playboy, or Hulk Hogan started to kind of buy into his own hype, and a lot of the guy, like Ultimate Warrior, changed his name to Warrior and shit like that. Baron is correct too. Red Pill is not Manosphere. The Manosphere isn't Red Pill. Manosphere is just a container word that journalists use to lump all men together as a collective identity. If you're a guy online, you're part of the manosphere. That's why I always tell you that the manosphere doesn't exist, because guys aren't collectives like women. We aren't herds. We're a bunch of individuals with like interests. That's how come you can lump tradcons like Stormfronters, Red Pill guys, MGTOWs, MRAs, and all these guys lumped together. It's because, I don't know, the only thing they have in common is they all have a dick. Fresh and Fit mods girls in the chat. A lot of ladies are drawn to it. I'm not sure how much of my space it is. I am assuming it's gonna do what everything does that gets popular. It starts to cater to the female audience because women spend fucking money, dude. In fact, I would not be surprised if you look back and like, I've never really watched an episode. I've only just seen a clip occasionally when somebody sends it to me. But I would bet dollars to donuts I come back if it's still around in a year, and I'll see some like Dr. Phil shit on there. If they're smart. If they're smart and they want to make money, they will. If not, who knows? Yeah, and see, Marty gets the idea. And I kind of understand that these things are happening, so I started a second channel. What am I going to do there? It's just gaming. It's casual stuff, right? Because this is all. If the information isn't going to be working, you might as well stick with the entertainment side. So I'm like, what the hey? Speaking of which, Rolo stopped by and we turned him into a zombie hunter. It was pretty fun. Look at this. If I didn't know any better, I'd say Jimmy Jones knows what's up. There is a great story. They start to chase the flare while you end up like people with glow who are grossly unattractive, think he was sent to shit up the place and make it worse. Yeah. There's a bunch of guys like this. There was one guy, 88 Will 88, and he did the common thing that a lot of guys did. So there was the red pill and the married red pill. And there was no real overlap between the two. I think between Ultimate Cad, Archwinger, myself, actually, yeah, just the three of us. We're the only three that kind of had, any type of reputation among both the subs. So what would happen is some guy would be flared in the main subreddit. And the whole point of flare, by the way, I know I have to do all this background to get there. The point of flare wasn't to bestow some kind of honor on somebody because it's just fucking internet pixels. The point of flare was for a new user who went to the subreddit, you wanted to see sexual strategy. And maybe somebody's giving you some bullshit advice about just buy her flowers, bro. And then somebody else is giving you more red pill advice about being a Skittles man. And if you're brand new, you don't know the difference. Which one of these guys do you listen to? Because they're telling you contradictory things. The purpose of flare was to be, okay, look, use your head, try things out, make sure they work. Don't take anything on faith for itself. But in the case that you really don't know where to start and you're seeing two conflicting pieces of evidence, go with the guy who has flare until better sense. They're not infallible, but generally speaking, they will be more on point with red pill stuff than not. So it was a tool for the audience, not so much for the person. But typical guys, as soon as you give us internet pixels, we start to treat it like it's a godsend. And there was a bunch of guys that started treating it like that. Archwinger even had that. I remember Wine More Please, who's a regular to the channel, awesome guy. Had an argument with him. Is like, hey, do you really think your writing's that good? Then just delete your username, start up again. If it's that good, you'll be back in this place in no time. You never did. You kind of just kept with it. So everybody kind of gets attached to it. I get it. Which is weird because I never did, but anyway, so they would come to the other, from one subreddit to the other subreddit. They'd run their mouth, have a pissing contest. Dicks will be waving. Egos were flying. And yeah, they all ended up, like Jimmy was saying here. Then it was the idea that I want to be the coolest kid in the He-Man Woman Haters Club. And that's where you got this guy like Daniel Glow. He started reading on the esoteric shit like Evola. He expatriated to like Chile or something like that. And he was grossly unattractive. And the only thing he was really good at was provoking people. He actually ended up being one of those guys that ran the Donald Trump subreddit that got all that notoriety back in 2017. He basically knew how to provoke people into getting a response. That was his only talent. And but that's the problem. Once you get these clout chasers, they kind of scare away other people because I have to be the king of this mountain. So you just shit on every other content. And that's why you see a lot of like really shitty small YouTube brands with like the only thing they do is call out videos, like Mr. John Anthony, Denny's boy. It's because they treat this all as like a weird status game when it's not. It's not a zero-sum status game. It's like a win-win type situation. There's a huge audience and it keeps growing, so like you don't need to take from anybody else's pie. You can still build your own. But that's the problem is when you're socially uncalibrated like that, and then you come into a space about social calibration. Yeah. What the heck? Tate trolls just pop all over the chats. He's grifted Islam. Oh, he's Islamic now, is he? I thought he was Orthodox or something like that. I don't know. I can't keep track. Oh, yeah, and Jimmy's absolutely right. So those guys end up attracting the same pathological personalities. I'm sure you've heard Rolo talk about pathological personalities attract more of them. And then that's the problem, is that once pathological people find an entry vector, they start joining in, scares off all the talent, and then you end up with just like a hollow shell of a place you used to have. And that's kind of what killed the red pilled subreddit. Everybody was always worried it was going to be censorship from the left. It was going to be feminists will kill it. It's going to be, oh, the government's going to crack down because they can't have you guys do. Everybody was worried about the boogeyman. And what ended up being the boogeyman? Unattractive, needy retards. And I was like, we are truly our own worst enemy. We really are. And it's why Rich Cooper's advice, probably the best advice I've ever received from anybody, and I still use it to this day. Don't work with retards, and don't work with people who work with retards. Which it's kind of a corollary to the law of power: avoid the unlucky and the unhappy. And I do hope you guys take this, because this isn't just about branding. Like, from a sexual standpoint, I would say so too. If you're out and you have a wingman and he tends to be unattractive, he gets jealous if you're picking up and he's not, and he cockblocks you, or he managed to get drinks thrown in his face every weekend because he says the wrong thing to the wrong person, and you just realize, like, he's making you look worse just by being there. And perhaps maybe he's a good friend for every other reason, but he's not good for game. It might be time to say, I'm going to Sarge this one, sir. Maybe you're not the greatest wingman. It's hard for a lot of guys, though, because of that covert contract. Like, you expect, if I hang out with you, you'll start acting right and help me get laid, and then it'll be a problem-free life, and it never works out. Thirst is the worst. I wish I could lump it in with thirst is the worst. It's kind of a weird thing. It's like a similar phenomenon, but at the same time, it's not, because there's nothing to be thirsted after, or at least the stakes are so low. It's amazed how many people. Oh, that's awesome. I just see the new account here, the MGTOW 42069 Alpha Wolf. My God, sir, you guys, it's almost like you paid attention to what the hell I've been talking about on here. Oh, here, take a quick break. Charles Bukowski, Jordan Peterson, Neil Strauss. I like these guys. Add some salt to cover up the bitterness of middle-aged soccer moms and put in the oven for 45 minutes. Optionally, you can take from all this stuff what you want and leave the rest. So enjoy Fuck Files. 15 lessons from a decade of women, now on audio. Damn, that's good. It's a good book. You guys should check it out. Where did I leave off on this? Oh, yes. Thirst is the worst. The subreddit, the quarantine, I mean, that's all just details. If it wasn't that, it would be something else. But even then, the quarantine, the censorship, that didn't really kill it. Like, we killed our own things. And you've heard the meme, gatekeep your spaces, right? Gatekeep your spaces. Where's my timer on here? 26. Oh, 33. Gatekeep your spaces. Because if you don't gatekeep your spaces, these kind of things can happen. Either the Eternal September overrun degrades the quality, regresses it to the mean, or unattractive clout-chasing people come in and completely ruin everything trying to get, like, the king of whatever mountain. It matters. I mean, it works slower in real life than it does online, but it's still the same phenomenon. Whether you have, like, a hunting club, and there's the one asshole there that refuses to wear duck hunting gear, or a subreddit. It's the same thing. Going out with a group of people, having that one friend in your friend group that makes everybody look bad. There's no value there, right? So it's the same thing. So gatekeep your spaces. Now there's two parts to this. There's the part that everybody talks about that makes sense. Everybody loves hearing it. It's like, basically it means kicking out people who suck. Everybody can get behind that. Yeah, I don't like suck people. Fuck them. The other part of this is you have to be worth a damn in that same space to have any influence on it whatsoever. And I think this is the part that people miss. Like, all these guys complaining about the red pill is dying, the red pill is dead, whatever. They don't do anything. It's just like MGTOW 42069 Alpha Wolf. It's nobody. He could bitch tomorrow. He could make up the greatest argument as to why this place has gone to shit, and nobody would care. So the part of gatekeeping your spaces that nobody talks about and nobody wants to hear is that you have to be worth a damn in them before you can gatekeep anything. Who the fuck are you to gatekeep this space? And that involves work. and work looks like work, and people don't like that because work takes effort and it takes time and it's not immediately gratifying. Case in point, this channel was like a year before it could even get monetized. So I had to do videos on this channel for a year before anybody decided to give me a shiny penny for my fucking effort. Happens. But then as you build, you get the opportunity to be a better gatekeeper. I'd like to think, anyway, I have some influence on what people would consider to be good and bad from red pill content perspective. Rollo, absolutely. I mean, he's taken 20 years of his life. He's got 5 books and a giant channel. So at this point, I would argue if Rollo says you're in, you're in. And if he says you're out, you're out. Now, luckily, he's not an asshole about it. He kind of he's generally more trusting than I think he should be, but that's fine. Yeah. Oh, and then you guys are talking about the female dating strategy. So we'll get into that one a little bit later. I don't have the strongest opinion on it, but I'll talk into that. Does anybody realize how many terrible cooking videos that is? I swear to God, Marty. I swear to God. Yeah, so to gatekeep your spaces, nobody ever considers that. You have to be a useful person in your space. And unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, in order to be useful in any type of male social matrix, is realize it's based on meritocracy and sacrifice. I'm not saying sacrifice isn't some big, like, I sacrificed my life for you guys, you owe me an epitaph or whatever. No. It's little things. Effort, time, patience, training, establishing yourself, like all this stuff. And it's not that it's even hard. It just takes time. Like a blog is not hard. 5 paragraphs about a concept, write a sentence. Each paragraph is like, write a sentence that says what you want to say, and then add 2 or 3 more sentences that expand on it, or reiterate it, or re-articulate it, or whatever. Fuck your ASMR. And that's it. There's a blog post right there. You do that once a week for a year. It's 50 posts on any topic. I guarantee if you can do that on any topic, you will have been top 20% of whatever that space is. I don't care if it's nuclear physics. I don't care if it's picking up chicks. I don't care if it's painting Warhammer 50,000 figurines. Or 20,000, sorry. Warhammer 20,000 or 40,000. How many thousands were in the Warhammer? Somebody help me out here. Who's the tabletop nerds in the chat? Gatekeeping comes with an expiration date. The Manosphere 2. Maybe. 40,000. Thank you very much. Yeah. So, you can't really expect a well gate-kept place if there's no standards of conduct, if there's no standards of effort. There's a reason there why the legal profession hasn't really gone very woke. You may be able to get charged on some woke shit like the Kyle Rittenhouse guy, but at the end, the law is going to be the law. And there's a reason for that. It's because every lawyer has to work his ass off to get through the bar. You take 4 years of university, 2 years of law school, pass a bar, practice law. That's a giant entry exam. And anybody who gets to that point has shown they're putting in like a quarter of their professional life just in the sacrificial way, just to increase like the prosperity of a space. Not many places have that. Medical profession does as well, but even then, that's kind of going weird lately. But I would say law would be the gold standard. And they're ruthless with each other. They will kick each other out. If you do some kind of thing that breaks against the bar because everybody else's reputation is based on this, they gatekeep the fuck out of their space. Judge, don't care if you're a judge of 30 years. If you do something stupid like diddle one of the jurors, you're fucking out. I think, I'm trying to think of I can't use that example. Damn it. All right, well, I'm going to anonymize this, but there was an example of one of the guys in our space who actually had that. The judge was working hard to take the girl's side during his acrimonious divorce. She was batshit crazy, alcoholic, drug addict, everything wrong you could think of about why would you make her the sole custody kind of thing. And I don't know what it was, but he totally took her side. He broke a bunch of legal, not policies, but whatever. Anyway, so it got at that point that even the guy's lawyer was like, This one's kind of outside of the norm here. I might actually have to take this to the bar. And so they ended up having to get the guy a legal reprimand. And if you don't know, reprimands are a big deal. I don't know the legal ones so much. I've asked other lawyers and they're like, yeah, a reprimand is pretty much the short of just kicking them out of the bar and forbidding them from practice law. A reprimand is the harshest thing you can do to somebody. Now, I know in the military, for the officers, a reprimand is considered a serious punishment. Not as much as jail time, but they try not to give jail time to the officers. Only the NCMs get Club Edmonton. And what a reprimand means is that your career is done. Like, you will never get promoted past the rank of your reprimand, commendations, postings. Like, you're basically they're basically making it so, like, if you're comfortable with your spot in life, you can ride this out to your pension. Otherwise, you're probably going to want to get out now. So, a reprimand. It's a big deal. So they ended up getting this judge a reprimand. And that's the point. A judge, 20, 30 years to get to a judge position. One stupid mistake. Well, I mean, I wouldn't say mistake. It was pretty deliberate. And that's good gatekeeping. But what are you going to have? You can't gatekeep the red pill because there is no central authority. It's like the weight loss industry, you know? It's like your office. You can't gatekeep your office. Why? The CEO is the only one who really dictate policy, or HR or whatever. And are you in HR? Are you the CEO? No. So what do you do about that? Well, you just let it die because you can't change it. Serenity prayer. Wisdom to change the things, the strength to suffer the things you can't change, and the wisdom to know the difference. You know the spiel. It's all very biblical stuff. Yeah, you wouldn't understand. It's very biblical. It's in Latin. So you do what you do. Like, case in point is something actually I should be doing is I should be removing all red pill jargon from this channel. I just can't. I don't know. It's just, part of it is like, well, I already committed, so fuck it. And another part of it is like, I hold on to the nostalgia of the way I recall it being pre-grifter. I mean, there were still guys selling t-shirts on Teespring was the biggest deal that it had before. The central authority where his champs. Yeah, thanks, champ. Yeah. And that's nice of you to say, but I mean, yeah, so at this point you just have to accept that. So you have to go through a space, online space like this, a matrix like this, and understand without a central authority, without a core tenant. And that's why I think Rule 0 is just like the most paramount thing. I think it's great. I can't remember who originally put the concept out there. I want to say it was PK Atheist, the guy who created the Red Pill subreddit, which we now know is Robert Fisher. Rule 0, you're here for male sexual strategy for the benefit of men, and positive male identity. He's like, with those two core things, as long as you have those as your guiding principle, then anything underneath it goes. I like it. I think it still holds true to this day. And that's something for you guys to ask. When maybe you're hooked on watching somebody's podcast, or you're hooked on somebody's videos, or somebody's rants about what the fuck Will Smith did this week, ask yourself, does it adhere to Rule 0? And then that'll let you know, is this red pill, or is this some guy wearing red pill as a skin suit, right? Puts the lotion on its skin. Like one of that, yeah. Yeah. See, and then you get these weird arguments too, like Bougie here. I don't think a red pill should be used to make someone money. Should give you the mindset you need to become a millionaire. It's like, no, that just doesn't work. Everybody has that communist argument where anybody who's using this to make money is a grifter, and it's just like, somebody will. There's monetizable things in anything. If something is around and has enough interest in it, at some point it will be monetized. The question is the guy delivering value on what he monetizes? And I would argue entertainment drives value as much as anything. To entertain somebody who's got a certain set of not principles, but a certain set of mental models, to see those things reflected in entertainment, absolutely a good thing, I think. But the whole you got to do it for free, the problem with that is if something has to be done just on the sake of charity, it's never going to do well. It just won't, because people who are talented and invested in something expect compensation for that at a certain point. Like, the communism just doesn't work. I need to start watching Rule 0s. Yeah, if you want. Like that. Well, that's the thing. The subreddit didn't come up, or I mean, not the subreddit. The podcast didn't come up with the concept of Rule 0. It was actually here's a history lesson for the Rule Zero podcast. We were doing a different podcast with some goofball who ran a place called the 21 Convention. You actually probably have seen my video on there. We used to work with a guy. He went absolutely insane. Then we decided, I don't want to work with this guy anymore. And it's been the worst thing ever since. He's been the clinging ex-girlfriend that won't fucking stop fucking harassing us. Anywho. So we had a podcast then called Red Man Group, which I didn't come up with the name. It was idea because, red pill, so have it read this and read that. And yes, they're on Red Morning now. Exactly. The same miserable ideas. This is actually Red Morning. This podcast is older than the Rule Zero podcast because I made this because at the time I was like, I'm doing that one for free with these guys. And at some point, I just don't trust that any of them are going to have my best interest in art. So I made my own podcast. I'm like, here, we're going to build this thing up here. We'll do it so that if Red Man Group decided to go feral, I'll still be fine and not screwed over. Boy, oh boy, did I ever do a good risk management strategy on that one. And then we needed a new one. And Rollo brought up a good point. He's like, you know what? Like, the people are here. It's like you, me, John, Troy, Rich, all of them. We're here. And like whatever it is we build, we'll build an audience. So we need something new. And I'm like, I got a perfect idea. And I'm like, here, this was like the only hardcore principle we've had that the Red Pill has ever had. Let's just use this as a name. And so it can draw guys to it. And it's catchy, like Rule Zero, 2 names. It's got 0, a Z. That's a fancy letter. Z or Z, whatever you guys call it in the States. I don't remember. And he goes, oh, that's kind of neat. And I explained the history of it and or the entomology or whatever. He goes, oh, they're like, oh, I like it. He threw the Thrasher font on it, and here you are today. But you see what I mean? So you can't gatekeep a space. Somebody does something stupid, ruins a really good thing a space has because they're in the position to. So they basically take that same gatekeeping idea and they do the glow technique to it. It's like, I want to be the king of this thing, so anybody who's better than me, get the fuck out. They gatekeep it, make it worse. So how do you deal with a place that you can't truly gatekeep because there's no central authority? Well, out-create it. Out-create it. And this isn't just about podcasts and branding. This is everything, dude. If you're in a company and the company is just being nutted on constantly, consultants are running it into the ground, the CEO is just using it as an excuse to schlep the secretary, nobody's making money off of it. I've actually seen consultants. Well, they weren't consultants at the time. They were employees at these companies. And the thing was going to hell in a handbasket. And so, but they had like an essential skill within the industry. So what they do is they quit. They start up a consulting firm. And then the company hires them as a consultant to do that job again at like twice the pay of when they were last there. But not only is it twice the pay, they're a contractor now. They're not... they're a vendor. They're not beholden to the company structure. So where before a guy ended up in a position at his job, and I can't say what the company is. It was like financial regulation, but it was a good time. It was a good company. It's just, he found that he could finish a month's worth of work in like a couple days. But the company had come to expect that this work would take about a month to finish. He comes in as a consultant. He's like, yeah, I can shave a week off the thing. I already know your processes. They're like, sounds good. Here's twice as much money as we'd normally pay you. He'd get the work done in like a week. And then he had a 2-week vacation every month. I remember talking to him about this thing. And I was like, it was the most amazing thing ever. And I thought it was like some kind of grift. And he goes, no, it's just, I get it. One day I just realized like the only way to fix this problem was to do it my way. And the only way to be in control was to build my own company that does this thing. And now he had enough money and enough clout that he was able to get other clients. Instead of those 2-week vacations, he would pick up a second client because a lot of Canadian companies are fairly similar, especially in finance. So their processes are similar. And so now all of a sudden he had a viable product. Goes, hey, this works for this company. I could do this for yours. And then he started building more. Then I think he had like 12 people under him by the end of it. And I thought it was like it was almost like an aspirational model for me. If I had stuck with the corporate stuff and done consulting, I probably would have gone that route because it sounded a lot of fun. But yeah, for him, he was old. He was like in his late 40s. He's like, I was going to retire soon. So at least this way, I don't have to work very hard. So I don't mind working into my 60s and 70s. It's like, I only work like a quarter of the year and I'm earning twice what I earn normally. This is great. Which, I mean, whatever. Everybody's talking about the 6-figure side hustle. How about the $200,000 side hustle? Yeah, if I had $1 for every time I heard mindset in this space, I'm gonna ruffle some feathers actually, since we're talking mindset, by the way. I don't like the term mindset at all either. And I don't know if it's for the same reason you guys don't like the term mindset. The reason I don't like it is because it's a meaningless term. It has no significance. I don't understand it. We're going to make this one a mindset section. Mindset sucks. So when I tell you about a mindset, what does that mean? Like, what is having a mindset? What are some of the examples? Somebody always throws an adjective in it. A positive mindset. I have a feeling that Rule Zero is going to be full of like mindset speeches too, so this is going to be kind of embarrassing to like shit all over it just beforehand. But hey, fuck it. You didn't come here for no beef. Yeah, it's vague. Vibe, energy. I've actually started to swing around on vibe, but I think a more accurate term that I use for it, and I use it interchangeably and I really shouldn't, is tone. But I think about that from a creative aspect. So if you want to have like a chill vibe, I get it. So when you're hanging out with somebody, they want to get like a tone for your behavior. And chill is like relaxed, not too uptight, shit like that. So like when I hear vibe used, I kind of understand it, but I agree. But when I hear mindset, I just don't know what to think of it. Now, mental model is what I prefer to use because that makes sense. It's a pretty objective term, right? A mental model, a narrative structure that you anchor your decisions onto. So that way you can do it as like a fast thinking exercise. You don't have to think too hard about everything in your life. You just attach them to the mental models and go. So when I say change your mental models, that makes sense. Okay, so the decisions I'm making need to have a different narrative structure around them so the decisions end up having better outcomes for me. That makes perfect sense. But if I just tell you guys to have a more successful mindset or whatever, what does that mean? Well, it's whatever you want it to mean. Whatever you want it to mean. And I'm like, well, if you're just going to do what you want anyway, then why the fuck am I here? I'm just a middleman at this point. But I guess middlemen make good money too. I cite Tom Brady. What's your favorite ring? The next one. Well, it's not a bundle of views. It literally is a narrative structure. It's an Evo Sight concept, and I've talked about it. Like Venkatesh Rao kind of borrowed it from him a bit. A mental model is literally a story. Because before we had the written word, before we had language developed, like 100,000 BC or whatever year it was, and then what happened was people would share stories. You know, sit around the campfire, the elder would share the stories. You know this shit, right? And they're like, you do that for a couple, tens of thousands of years, and genetically it starts to affect you. It's actually, there's a term for it. It's called a mimetic. Memes. Susan Blackmore, student of Richard Dawkins, talks about it. It was back when TED Talks were good. She actually has a great one about memetics, temetics, and genetics. The three ways that information is passed from generation to generation. You guys obviously know genetics, how genes pass certain traits back there. Memetics are anything that is not a gene. So sunglasses or like seeing eyeglasses, that's a temetic technically, but a mimetic is the story type stuff. Christianity, religion, great example of a mimetic. You can turn the other cheek. What would Jesus do? That's like a deep narrative is like, what would Jesus do? And that's where you start thinking of turn the other cheek. So what does that do? That's a mental model. It's a narrative structure so that when people are in a situation and somebody wrongs you, what would you do? Well, back in the day, you'd like, I'm going to hit him over the head with a rock and then I'm going to kill his family. So then, no, try this mental model. Turn the other cheek. So you end up starting to forgive people for like small slights, right? And then your outcomes end up being better. Now you're not in a constant rock clubbing warfare scenario and you can actually live your life and grow some crops and have 8 babies. Great. There's a change in mental models. The Good Samaritan, another mental model. Islam has a bunch too. I just don't know the religion well enough to talk about it. Confucianism, all these things. All these things that people talk about as like rare ancient wisdoms, Taoism, Confucius, whatever your grifter is talking about. They're essentially just adopting older mental models. And it's not even that they have to be true. In fact, it's better for the mental models if they're not true because they just have to be useful. And if things are not true, then it's really easy to change it. So, for example, you start becoming secular, you stop believing in Jesus and the sky gods, and maybe turn the other cheek isn't the greatest mental model anymore. Maybe tit for tat is. Well, you can shed that because you don't have the underlying like ego attachment to it because it's just a story. You can have a new story, and the new story gives you a better strategy, and you adopt that, and you make better decisions. Great. Slap the left cheek, make the right one jealous. Wando, what would Donovan Sharp do? You guys are a bunch of dicks, man. Bunch of dicks. Attach a GPS tracker to a car and then yell at a chat member in chat. Having said that, I'm assuming he gets more super chats than me, because whenever he gets one, he starts yelling at the guy giving it out. And I'm like, I don't know if you're supposed to be doing that. But then I realized I'm pretty sure those guys sending him super chats are like, here, watch me get Donnie on a roll here. And you'll say some laminate shit super chat, and Donnie will spend 20 minutes. Look. This right here is what I swear to God, it was funny as hell when we used to still podcast together, and I'd watch him just like have the crowd rile him up, and he starts yelling and blaming, well, you guys are part of the problem. And I'm like, fuck, that's funny. You really should stop doing it. I got an anger issue. I'm like, fair enough, sir. This might not be the best job for you then if you have anger issues. Jeez, if I didn't know any better, you guys are pretty switched on when it comes to a lot of this meta talk. I can see why you like it here now. All right, I'm going to take another break.
Single moms. A horrible position that's not my problem.
I just chuckle every time I see these things. An example for me is that if people agree to a group project and they try to manipulate me into doing their portion, I always say no and don't dare. And then they act right. Well, I mean, that's the decision. As far as the mental model goes, I don't know. If you had like a catchy thing to say to it, I'd agree. There probably is a mental model attached there. You just aren't articulating it. Yeah, therefore, COVID mindset. The COVID model. Oh, hush, you guys. I don't want to hear another fucking word about COVID. I'm so over this. We had to be, like, on my last game stream for Friday, I had to stop at the office first. We had to do some administration stuff, and I just sat there, and it was funny because the front desk people, the management was so pissed about all of this COVID stuff. And it turns out during COVID, the price of, like, weights was insane. To get some 55-pound power blocks, people were charging $500 for one dumbbell. And what happened then is that the gym was kind of like, just as it get started to open, people were stealing weights out of our gym to sell. And that's not the funny part. That part kind of sucked. The funny part is it seemed like the only weights that were missing were ones that were 30 pounds and under. So I told the front desk, it's like, hey, we need to find a weak person here that goes to the gym. And they're probably the ones stealing the weights because the 65s haven't moved. Yeah, and it's crazy because when you're buying weights, the rule of thumb that I was told when you're buying some is $1 a pound. Anything less than that, you'll probably get, like, the weight will be off or it'll rust out quickly. But once you pay about $1 a pound, you're going to get good quality. And it'll last you forever. And here from Gonzo. Hey, Ryan, the shut the fuck up video was probably the best advice I've had in my life. Keep up the good work. Dude, like I said, STFU is a superpower, man. That actually... And I'm glad, that's the mental model, right? When in doubt, shut the fuck up. Okay, that's a story. You hear about a guy, opens his mouth, makes himself lose. There's actually, so here's the original mental model for it. Verbal intercourse is optional. Fun fact. Yeah, I mean, yeah, there you go, Jimmy. So yeah, there's the model. I'll read this one to you because it's fun. Sexy shoulder devil. You think I was sarcastic? This guy was sarcastic, by the way. I don't talk about him at mids yet, but I probably should. It's like, yeah, the matters we discuss here are all about creating sexual options by becoming better. It's about developing the mindset of an abundance and embracing the fact that you have control over your life if you put in the work. It's also about realizing your wife has similar control. To rehash everybody's favorite example, your wife has control over whether or not she is receptive to your want for sexual intercourse, aka fucking. You may be married and shared in some vows, but you simply do not own her body. If you initiate sex and she gives a hard no, you back off and play it cool. That's just how it works. The journey is not about forcing anybody to do anything they don't want to do. Quite the contrary. You only control yourself. Your job is to work on you and make it where she simply cannot fathom saying no to such a high-value man. The sidebar, look to your right, check my playlist, is the instruction manual for the assembly of such a man. Read the instructions before attempting to completely reassemble yourself. But there is some good news for you. The rules of control cut both ways. Now, to beginners, we give the advice you should simply shut the fuck up as you work to internalize all these concepts. But You must stop engaging the emotional chaos around you until you can learn how to manage yourself first. But when you begin to establish this stoic frame, and your wife feels it and is jarred by it, she will attempt to further engage you to test your resolve, and you don't need to engage. However, what do you do when your wife persists and chases you around the house with her raging emotions trying to initiate verbal intercourse, aka talking? It's simple. Give her the hard no to her initiations. If you don't want to have a conversation, say, "I'm not having this conversation," and leave the room. If she persists and continues to follow around the house demanding you speak while ignoring your hard no, remove yourself from her presence by physically leaving the house. Go for a walk, go to the store, better yet, go to the gym. When your wife gives you her no to sex and leaves the bedroom, do you follow her around the house with your raging erection trying to jam it into whatever orifice she's left uncovered? I'm betting she wouldn't be fond of that. And if she is, then you should have tried that years ago. Until you're worth fucking, she has every right to say no in sharing sex. And until you think she's worth conversing with, you have every right to say no in sharing a conversation. But now, you're at a stalemate, right? Wrong. Your self-improvement will break the stalemate. As you build the body of a worthy man who possesses a strong frame, she will want to engage you sexually. In return, and with time, you will want to converse with your now sexual wife who gives off a wonderfully feminine air, even though during simple talks, until the next fitness test. So for the benefit of both you and your wife, break the stalemate and get to work. Lift and repeat. And I love the too long didn't read summary. Don't chase your wife around the house with a raging erection. Don't let your wife chase you around the house with her raging emotions. Sexual and verbal intercourse is optional. I always loved that one. We reference it so much. And here's the funniest thing. I have had to, back in the subreddit, I had to link that to people talking constantly, at least once a week. 7 years, once a week minimum, having to show somebody this to let them know to stop talking and to shut the fuck up. It's a great little mental model. It's a great one because you think about you want to have sex, your wife says no. Do you chase her around the house with a hard on, trying to throw it into her? No. So when she's running her mouth at you and you don't want to hear it, why is it any different? It's not. So with that model, then guys start to understand, okay, so when the wife's pulling some shit that I don't really want to deal with right now, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And they're like, oh, just shut the fuck up. And then they make better decisions. Make less mistakes. And in the case of shut the fuck up, it's not a winning strategy. It's a stop losing strategy. It's not be more attractive. It's be less unattractive, you know? Yeah, that going too. He's talking about the argument kisses. I mean, that one's hit or miss. I've used it. It has worked, but there's times you're like, yeah, if I go in for a kiss right now, it's not going anywhere. Favorite thing here is the mid-watches and Patreon field reports for its application of knowledge, and guys tend to make similar mistakes because we aren't special and very similar in actions. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's kind of the thing, and it fills me with joy to hear that. It does. If every guy is making the same mistakes, it means every guy has the same solution, which means this shit is able to be codified in a way that works. And I'm like, that's great. You ain't special. You ain't shit. That's okay. In fact, that's great. But yeah, mindset sucks. Mindset sucks. Thinking I might actually get a refill of my coffee. Here, we're gonna... do I have anything I can put on here to just like keep you guys busy for the meantime? Nope, I think I'm just gonna go blank screen. Oh, actually, you know what? I know what I'll do. Here's what we're gonna do. I gotta find it. Where'd it go? Yeah. Put on no, wait, that's gonna be copyright. I can't put on that either. You know what? I'm just gonna go blank. All this time I spent looking for it, I gotta add my coffee and come back. I'll see you guys in just a second. Oh. And we're back. No lava sighted yet. No, this isn't the gaming stuff, which by the way, guys, I really got to push it more. The second channel is nice. It's casual stuff like this, right? But it's a little more lighthearted. It's a little more fun. It's 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 10 till noon. It's good stuff to just leave on in the background while you're doing your work and stuff. Go check it out, Digital Ryan. I'll put a link to it in the chat. Hopefully I spelt it right this time. Crap, it's all dark. Yeah, got your nose. So that's fun. All right. What do we have for time? 1:06. Living vicariously. I cannot stand celebrity gossip and movie stuff for red pilled. You're going to see this a lot, by the way, where somebody's like, hey, you should do Mad Men. That was like the biggest thing for a while. Fight Club, Mad Men through a red pilled lens. You should do Sex in the City through a red pilled lens. You should do this reality show. I think Donnie used to do that, where he'd watch, what is that stupid show where it was all the narcissists from Britain talking about fucking each other or something? Like Love Island. Maybe Love Island. Love Island. Yeah. And he'd sit there and he'd talk about it and like, oh, dude, from red pill lens, this guy's this and this guy's the other thing. And oh, and he's doing her. And I just realized, like, I fucking hate this shit. It's so... what's the word for it? It's not even the gossipy part of it. There's a big problem that people have where they try to use fiction to describe sexual dynamics. And the problem with that is that you're not looking at a real scenario. You're looking at a writer's interpretation of a real scenario. And for the most part, writers aren't attractive people. Like, watching a writer write about an orgy or a romance shows you just how little they tend to know about, orgies or romance and shit like that, right? Now, sometimes they may get it right, but it's by pure accident. Other times it's because there's a general concept that resonates with people. Like the idea of self-sacrifice as a man gets us off. Like watching Rambo sacrifice himself to save his best friend. Everybody gets it. But I mean, it's the way it's performed is by a writer's standards and a director's standards and an editor's standards. And all of them are lying to you for the sake of making something more emotional and engaging. And it's feels over reels. And the problem is it never works. Just remember, reality TV is the most scripted thing ever. In fact, I'll do you one better. Do you remember those woke talking points from, I want to say it was a year ago. Could be later, could be earlier, I don't remember. Where they were mad that you can't get this actor to play the part of a gay person. You need to hire a gay person to do that. You can't get this guy to play a black character. They have to put a white person to do that. And it was like, unless you fit into that particular woke box, you weren't allowed to act as that particular thing. You're not Chinese, you're Hawaiian. You can't act a Chinese part. And you essentially realize that like the entire woke culture was kind of designed for reality TV. Because that's all it is. Scripted TV that everybody is playing their authentic self. And their authentic self is a boring narcissist that has a really good editor. Yeah. So but the thing is, it doesn't work good for you because now it's a garbage in, garbage out scenario. You are taking advice from somebody who's using an example that was developed in somebody else's head to describe a real thing. So now you're like 3 points separated. So you have a real thing, you have a writer's interpretation of it, then you have a content creator's interpretation of the writer's intentions of the created thing that's based on a real event, and then you, 3 parts separated from this, are trying to achieve that same event through all of these middlemen, and everybody changes it just a little bit so it resonates more. The writer's like, I need people to cry at the end of this movie, so I need the Iron Giant to say Superman as he crashes into the thing. The content creator's like, I need to take this through a lens of wham and ain't shit, so everything I'm going to say here is going to just tweak it towards the wham and ain't shit He-Man Woman Haters Club. And then by the time you get it, it's so detached from the actual thing you're trying to learn that the closer you adopt it, the worse you'll do. And this is why I flat out tell you guys, stop watching us on YouTube. Stop watching everybody on YouTube. Me too. Go out and try some shit. Like there's 500 people here who will talk about an opinion opener, a Yad Stop, a London Day Game opener, what's the old man openers from Roosh. You got all of them. Try one. Try one, try two, try three. Eventually one will work for you. You're like, hey, this opinion opener thing, I got the hang of it. I think I can do it. You go out and do it. It has fun. You try the old man opener. You're like, it's cringy and never really seems to work, so I stopped doing it. Then you got it. Then you realize I actually don't need any of this stuff. I can just walk up to a girl and say hi, and then the conversation can flow from there. It's like, yeah, now. But before you knew what you were doing, you kind of needed that structure just to practice it a bit so you can look with your own fucking eyes as to what's happening. So you did an opinion opener 4, 5, 6, 7, 100 times. And then you realize, okay, so I see how these conversations go. I just, now I just say hi. And that's when and then you completely forget. The brain is wonderful at this, at forgetting the shit that we used to do when it was hard and assuming it's always been like this. And I swear to God, it's one of those funny things. You would not believe how many guys are in this space have talked about when they got here, their relationships were in the shitter. Their girl was a nagging bitch. She wouldn't sleep with them. Like any of the horror story shit you could think of. She would describe the relationship as like, we're sticking out for the kids, but I can't stand this asshole. Then he goes through the red pill process. No more Mr. Nice Guy, Manuel Smith, practical female psychology, rational male, all the guys. Gets his relationship back on track because he's top tier. He's got expectations. She fights hard to keep him. It's a wonderful situation. And that's not the funny part. The funny part is to talk to him or the girlfriend / wife / whatever, is that they describe it like, it's always been like this. We've never had problems in our relationship. It's like they completely forgot the dark times, which I get it. You kind of have to when you're doing irrational confidence, when you're being cocky funny, when you're being aloof, when you're being top tier. The last thing you want to do is like, hey, you're the greatest guy ever. Hey, remember that time last year when you told me to go fuck my, like, it just doesn't work that way. So you kind of are incentivized to forget it. And the girl absolutely forgets it. They delude themselves into thinking nothing's ever getting wrong. They called it Schrodinger's AWOL. I would never do that until I did. But I didn't. And those are the guys that will tend to, it's weird because they'll also give you the, just talk to girls, bro. And they forget that there's a process to it. And they're kicking the ladder out from under them. And yeah, I get it. Nobody wants to have to say, how you slept with her? How? It's like, well, I don't want to tell you this, but I learned the tricks in a book from a nerd who does magic part-time in LA. Everybody looks at you like you're a fucking idiot. And you're like, yes. So nobody wants to admit this, that you have to learn things, especially when it comes to sex. For some reason, nobody expects in any sphere of human influence, any human endeavor that exists, for you to just naturally know how to do it without any training, any thought, or any research beforehand, with one exception: sex. For some reason, that's the only one that's like, if you need to ask anybody how to do anything, then you're seen as unattractive and should have just gone into a hole and died. Which is kind of how the mental model of shut the fuck up really got its start. Stop talking about this stuff. It's not meant to be attractive. You're supposed to just do it quietly. Wando, €2 super chat. You want it as hard as Tom Hardy, no pun. Oh yeah. Dude, I forgot about that meme. It's been a while. Tom Hardy was talking something about like sucking a dick to get into the industry, and I just kind of put it with a caption. It's like, how bad do you want it? Do you want it as bad as Tom Hardy? But hey. Yeah, I'm not telling anybody now how in physics Schrodinger's AWOL doesn't make sense. There's a post on it too. I could pull it up, but I can never remember how to spell Schrodinger, so I kind of screw it up. Actually, you know what? We'll try it now. Let's see. Schrodinger slut? Oh, okay, I guess he changed the name. Is this the right one? Yeah. All right, so I kind of don't want to put this in there either. This guy was, what's his name? If it's still him. Why does it not say his name anymore? Aerobus. Oh, no, it should be, a guy called Sadomasochrist. But for some reason, everybody else seems to have their own versions of it. So there's like this one, and neither one's the one I'm looking for, but whatever. Whatever. It's like I said, it's, Oh, maybe it was Nawalt. Not all women are like that. Whatever. Like I said, I'm not going to look this one up. Read those if you want to. Those aren't at all what I'm talking about. I shouldn't have even posted them, but whatever. We're here now. It's just another one of those mental models where a lot of girls swore they were never like that, and it's probably my favorite. My favorite longitudinal field report from the red pill was actually from purple pill debate. So there was, and there's like basically fresh and fit is purple pill debate with White Claws. So if that puts it in perspective here, and it would mostly be red pill guys arguing about how women ain't shit, and then the women in purple pill debate saying you guys are fucking wrong. I am shit. And there was this one example of like guys don't want girls with a high notch count, which we can get into that if you want to, but that's kind of beside the point. The girls there was one in particular who used to be an escort or something like that out of Australia. And she's like, that's stupid. I don't agree with that. And then she would basically describe the exact opposite of it. I have a high notch count. My boyfriend's not jealous. We're going to get married. And he's the sweetest man ever. He's not like the guys I used to bang in my 20s and shit. Like all the fucking things you used to hear. And it was always funny. And everybody used to parade around. It's like, oh, so much for your fucking theory. Look at this one here. Did all the things you said weren't going to happen. And I think they were married for maybe a year. And then she ended up cheating on him. She ended up leaving him. And everybody laughed. And it was like the funniest thing because the red pill guys were like, fucking told you. I fucking told you. And without an ounce of like shame or self-awareness, she essentially adopted all of the worst part of like AWOL. It's like, I just wasn't happy. Wasn't doing it for me. I had to get my needs met. He was abusive. Like everything you could think that you've heard from MGTOW 42069 Alpha Wolf. She was doing that. Yeah, $100. It's cheap and easy money. So the red pill guys kind of laughed and everybody else kind of like just collectively forgot. It's like she never existed. It was a memory hold. And so everybody keep bringing, hey, remember that chick that you guys kept using in here to say that our theories were stupid because she was an exception. Then she turned out to be exactly what we said. Yeah, it never ended up going in her, but it's kind of funny. So well, that's not Chesty's quote, Jack. That is Archwingers. Yeah, every unhappy wife is a grape victim. Speaking of mental models, I like that one too. Not for the reason you think though, because when you say that, it like from an anger phase perspective, it sounds like, yeah, fuck these bitches. They're treating it like they don't like me, and they're treating it like it's a grape situation. You're like, no, it's for the guy, because most guys are decent people. The idea of forcing yourself on somebody is seen as horrendous. So when you mention and when you draw that connection between you being unattractive and your wife just not being attracted to you as the same ballpark as that, it leaves a visceral like, oh my God, is me being unattractive that serious an issue? Now, it's not, but it at least gets that connection in your mind so you take it seriously. Not so much literally, because if you take it literally, you just look like, these guys are saying they want to have grape all the time. And you're like, no, don't take it literally, but take it seriously. It's a great example. It was abusive. Who was the abuser? Well, that's one of the beautiful things about people who lie is that they always use distancing language. The passive tense. They don't say he was abusive. They don't say I was abusive. They say the relationship was abusive. So that way there's nobody to blame. There's no pinpointing on it. It's one of those clever things. If you start seeing somebody use proper English, speaking proper, using distance language, you can tell they're trying to hide something from you. What it is, who knows? Maybe it's your surprise birthday party. Maybe it's that your brother is going to be the dad of her new baby. Who knows? Oh, you got it. Look at that. Which ones did you have? Is it the same one or is it a different one? Let me see. Oh yeah, the Hampu wife. You know what the funny thing is? When you do the search term, like search for the title, I actually think I went out on the SEO because Archwinger had left at the time and I was worried we were going to lose all of his stuff. Ah, dang. Yeah, there it is. Bam. Oh, that might just be because of me, because it's my blog that they gave it to me, but I don't know. I just don't do CEO victories on much, so it'd be kind of nice. But I was like, this one is too good. There's a couple like serious posts and I'm like, I just want to keep a record of it. It's on my blog. It's not my writing, but whatever. I gave him credit. Fuck it. All right, we got one more. Gots to, mister.
I love the way girls smell. I love how they always make sure, by and large, they shower, and they just have an amazing smell to them in general.
I never get tired of that shit. Never. I thought I had lost that the annals of time. He deleted that comment. Somebody managed like, oh, by the way, here. And I'm like, oh, you found it, you good sir. He's like, yeah, you don't just throw stuff like that away. It's actually my one biggest regret, because do you guys know who Dr. Taylor Burroughs is? Have you heard of the name before? You may have known her by the previous name of Dr. Dude Babe or Dr. Babe Dude Love. And there was a video of her crying in her car about how she was still single and couldn't find a man, and that in her 20s she found a man, but she thought she was too good for him, and so she let him get away, and then the one she did want didn't want her, and now she's 43 and miserable. Which is funny because she's also a dating coach. And I'm like, oh man, this thing is fucking comedy. Like, it was so bad. It was so bad that I didn't even really want to like dunk on it. Because it's like pity is your first response, not laughter. But in retrospect, I should have saved that one. I really should have. Because it's like the best example I've ever seen about a big reason not to listen to women dating coaches. Because most of the time their life is an absolute fucking mess. Like a mess, you know? Alpha is important to me. Well, dude, so bougie, and I don't want to second guess your understanding here. You could be absolutely right here, but just remember, alpha males are a container word. They don't exist. It doesn't exist. It's a weird concept. They just replace alpha male with godliness and you get a conservative grift. Replace it with good, believing in the science, and you got a COVID grift. There's no such thing. From a red-pilled perspective, alpha and beta are just symbols. Anything that makes a girl attracted to you and want to sleep with you is considered alpha. And it's just a way of describing those behaviors in aggregate. Beta is everything that makes a girl comfortable to be around you and want to be in a relationship with you. Or like friend zones, that kind of stuff. Kissing on the forehead, hugs, movie nights, rubbing her feet, that stuff's all beta. Alpha is stuff like being aloof, being physically attractive, being 6 foot tall, shit like that. Yay, say abstractions. Say my name. Yeah. So when you say you're interested in alpha, what you really mean is you're very interested in being more sexually attractive. And that's a better way of putting it, because by just saying alpha, it leaves too much interpretation. Too much up to there. So you can fill it with all kinds of nonsense. And what you're essentially doing is whoever fills your head with stuff that you like hearing, even if it isn't necessarily there to make you more attractive sexually, you'll adopt it. And that's the problem I have with jargon. It's good to have the jargon here if I mention certain qualities are alpha. But at the same time, if you start using it back too much, you end up losing sight of what you're doing. It's the same way I talked about before, the telephone game. The concept, the writer, the content creator, and you. The jargon's just one more step in there. Jesus, you guys are brutal. Yeah, arousal, desire, wet, whatever word. But that's the thing. They're all describing the same thing. Getting to the smash. Once you smash, anything after that is an alpha. But till you start doing PIV. It's a good way to think about it too, because then you focus on the outcome. And I think that's a big problem with red-pilled spaces, is that everybody is so worried on living vicariously through whatever. Like the Tate model. I'm fucking awesome. You want to be like me. Look at how fancy my shirt is. My shoes cost $500. Who the fuck are you? Are you even 6 foot? And you're like, all right, whatever. And then everybody latches onto that. Like, he's fucking awesome, dude. Look at his car. And then they forget, oh, right. He was supposed to help me make money. And how am I doing? And you realize, okay, I'm basically slightly poorer than I was when I started, because I paid like $6,000 to be in the war room. So I'm now net worth of X minus $6,000. So this is probably not a great idea, but that's because they get attached to like the symbols, the alpha male, the bravado, all that stuff. And then you don't get focused on the outcome. So like if you're listening to red-pilled content, if you're reading red-pilled books, if you've watched Rational Male and haven't gotten your dick wet once in a year afterwards, then chances are either the stuff you're reading or the red pill in general is just not for you. Now I know that's not the case because we got way too many people that have said otherwise. But for you, might be the case. There's been a few guys where on the Alpha's Wolf example that I use about going Rambo was perfectly that. He just wasn't capable of using his own head and thinking through his own things. He would just follow what other guys told him to do without thinking about it. And he was getting himself into some serious trouble. So the guys were like, this place isn't for you. You need to stop doing this. Go back to your other life because we can't help you. And all we're going to do is cause you to end up in a fucking domestic violence suit. So you got to go. Well, you're never going to see that. You got to remember, too, when you're a curated brand, you only show people what you want them to see. I'd say everybody does that. I do that, too, to most extent. But for the most part, I kind of just keep my private life, for the most part, off of the line. But do you think, honestly, that you'll ever see that guy or John Anthony show you a set where they get blown out, when they approach a girl and get blown out? Fuck no. They need you to believe that everything they touch turns to gold. Every pussy that they walk by drips for them and shit like that. And it would affect the bottom line if they didn't. So they kind of have to. But you got to understand that. Again, stop living vicariously through content creators, because and I'm saying I'm one of them too, because I create content, so fuck it. But I always hate this space, and I hate the people in it, for the most part. And I hate having to be in it, but whatever, you got to make a living, right? So here you are. Yeah, how am I going to spread my esoteric beliefs if I'm out there getting laid instead of working on myself and putting myself out there? Dude, that's the mystery of the universe, right? How can I tell everybody how awesome I am when I'm too busy being awesome off camera? Yeah. Living vicariously, it's always bad. Thank you, Rob, you IROC Z driving motherfucker. This guy's giving me shit yesterday over some millennial shit. Meanwhile, he's got a bunch of Gen Z stuff in his closet. Go watch your Max Headroom, asshole. Yeah, alpha, placeholder term for behaviors that arouse a woman instead of making her comfortable. Absolutely, that's it. That's literally it. And everybody muddies the waters by talking about alpha males as the same thing, but it's a placeholder term for anything that resonates with you as good. It's a moral judgment, but there's no moral judgment to alpha. You think alpha males are stoic and they're this and they're that. You always describe these values that they're supposed to have, and that's not at all what it is. You got to focus on this, like you said, attraction triggers. That's it. There's no morality to it. She's married though. Yeah, but she found you attractive and so you made her aroused, and that was an alpha thing. Well, yeah, it's a married woman though. And you're like, I don't care. It still made her aroused. She's still a girl. Learned more today than I did in high school. Well, to be fair, you probably didn't learn anything in high school. I know I didn't. Everybody talks about how, what's the thing now that high school kids are being don't say gay or whatever, that bill. Everybody's like, oh, the teachers are going to make all your kids lesbians. And I'm like, wait a minute. Are you telling me now that kids are listening to their teachers? Because I went through 5 years of high school like everybody else, and I didn't listen to a goddamn thing that any of them said. I think I learned how to graph parabolas and to conjugate être as a verb in French. That's it. 5 years. 2 things to show for it. So I kind of have a hard time believing that these teachers are going to gayify your kids. I'm like, the kids aren't going to fucking listen. If anything, if you really hate the LGBT shit, you should want the teachers to do nothing but talk about it all day, because nothing will make your kids lose interest in this so much as having a bunch of cringy adults tell them how it's a good thing. That's exactly what you want. Yeah, well, that's the problem too. Bish is a good point too. Like Royce used to use alpha for good and beta for bad and all that nonsense for a long time. True. And that's kind of what's made it hard, because Royce's kind of changed over the years, and Rolo too. They would use it, alpha male and beta male, as container words for good and bad for a long time, and then it slowly kind of morphed into that once the guys like Ian Ironwood, Athol K, fuck, I'm missing a name in there, but whatever, started to understand these concepts. But that's the problem, is the internet never forgets. So there's always going to be these cases where you find some guys talking about alpha males. And hey, you know what? It's a growing thing. It evolved. It's a white paper. It's a living document. There is no codified hard truth. It just so happens that this is the one framing that has taken hold and has had the most resonance from time, right? Alpha males drive Lambos, light up cigars, and on rented jets. Also, the Tinder Sunder does that. Dude, the rented jet thing makes me laugh. It's like, people, do you guys know? Like, you guys must know this now, right? Where there's that, there's the jet set. Like, they have the internal A10 cockpit stuff. So you can just sit down in a studio in LA and take a bunch of photos where it looks like you're inside a private jet flying around. And you mean to tell me these influencers are flying around in all these private jets all the time? It's like, they're at the fucking set, dude. Do you ever notice that everybody's sitting on the exact same chair? It's because if you turn the camera 5 degrees over, you're going to see some fucking scaffolding. It's like the plane is like the stupidest flex ever at this point, because everybody has it. And yeah, so many Lamborghinis are just rented. So all these like, you got to show receipts. Like, all these receipts have been faked. They've been faked so much. There's an entire industry about fake receipt. The fake receipt industry. Rappers take music videos in their cars. Do you know what? The producers of those rap videos lend out their cars. I think it was Dr. Dre. He had like 30 cars in his garage or something like that. And every time one of the artists under his label came up with a new rap video, he'd lend them 2 or 3 of his cars to film in front of it. Sancho Bohemian, $5 super chat. All I learned was I should have left middle school and high school. Was thinking of making money at age 7. Yeah. It's just the way it works, man. People don't learn as much as you think they do. I'm starting to think that genetics might play the bigger role than anything, because nobody seems to be learning anything from this stuff. I'm starting to get that libertarian idea that the whole point of like public school was just subsidized babysitting so moms can get back into the office. While describing alpha as good to a bunch of dudes that aren't fucking, if the goal is fucking, is not wrong. Oh, and that's the thing too, right? Like, if you're trying to build an influencer brand, if you're trying to build an audience, absolutely. If you just take the word alpha and anything that resonates with the audience is alpha and anything that the audience doesn't like is beta, it'll fucking work. You'll make bank. It'll suck for you guys unless you just want somebody to tell you what you're great and everybody else is wrong. But yeah, it's just not helpful. It's not red pill. That's all it ever was. Anyways, let me check my time. All right. So we're at 1:31. I actually wasn't picturing much more than this. I wasn't going to do the full 2 hours today. It is my old lady's, I'm going to call this bantz. Old lady's birthday today. So I'm probably going to skip rule 0. We're going to head out, have a fun little day, fun little afternoon. Do the good Hoyt things. Buy her a bag of Skittles. Which is funny, by the way. I remember posting that picture way back when I first started this for my old lady's birthday. I bought her a pack of Skittles and I just took a picture of it. She's like, what the hell is this? And that's all I did. She got up nice, really good dressed, and went out, had a couple drinks, threw her some Skittles, went home. It was a nice event. Like, why'd you take the picture? And I threw it online. Not once has anybody used that picture to make fun of me. They always have to use it. Whatever. Anyways, no, they were just normal Skittles. I'm not doing fancy. Oh no, Couch having good time with his girl. I can't follow this. Hey. Let's not get too personal in this stuff. Ian Ironwood talks about his behaviors. Yeah, so that's good. He's been a big on it. But he was a marketing psychologist for a porn studio, if I'm not mistaken. There's an interview somewhere out there, and I've seen it once, but I can never find it again. I think it got memory hold. Where he does not look like you think. He does not. He has more of like a Coach Red Pill vibe to him, but he's never talked about how great his life was. But yeah, working in the porn industry and working with psychology, he was actually in a pretty good position to do what he did. He was like a mix of Rollo Tomassi and Sterling Cooper, so that was nice. Did you know that the first country introducing mandatory public school was Prussia to train the children to become good soldiers that would follow orders? I have no doubts. What a beta, taking his girl out for her birthday. I know, what an asshole, right? Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, it is what it is. Nothing much you can do about it. Anyways, I'm going to let you guys go. Thank you so much for the super chats. Thank you for the banter. Thank you for an hour and a half of your time. I don't say this nearly enough, but the fact that your time is the only thing of any value anymore, and you guys have managed to give me 90 minutes of it. How many of you guys all together in here? Like 200 of you guys in here. And you gave me 90 minutes of your time to talk about our dicks. I got to treat that with some reverence, because like not everybody gets that. For Rule 0 today, by the way, it's going to be, I think it's Troy or John. I think it's Troy, actually. Troy will be doing it on his channel. I cannot remember the topic. It was something about having more fun with your life and stop being a miserable fucking prick. So we'll see. If my day starts a little later, I might have some time to go pop in and say hi. But for the most part, you're just going to have to enjoy them on their own. And then do yourself a favor. Subscribe to Digital Ryan. Oh, damn it. Gotta type the goddamn thing again. //youtube.com. My fingers are getting fat. Check it out. Subscribe to the channel. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 10 to 12. We talk about the book. We talk about sexual strategy. We swap notes. And we have some fun just goofing around with like Minecraft and zombies and shit. Next week, by the way, Mish The Mish in the chat you guys are seeing here and David Andrus have both got YouTube channels. I don't know if you know this. By the way, it's been a long time, David. There you go. They all have YouTube channels. So they do their own kind of like, Red Pill, entertainment, whatever. Do check them out. I think Mish was doing a little bit of Elden Ring. He just started. Dave's been around a while. He's on the SMP. We have a lot of fun on that one together too. Yeah, it's good. Give these guys some love. Get them some support. Like I said, once these things get going, I want to steal them away from their day jobs to the point where we can have like multiple full-time content creators within a Red Pill space that just like having fun. So you don't have to hear about Whaminate shit all day. Instead, you can just watch. And Dave's got a soothing voice. You could leave his stuff on all day and just chill. It's like ASMR, man. ASMR minus the weird homoerotic erection stuff that you get from a lot of those chicks that put condoms on the mics and just scrape them with their nose and whatever. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. So I'm going to catch you guys later. Cheers. Oh, where's the thing?